A series of events has been set into motion here. My wife just closed the door, but the dog was in here. So now the dog's going to scratch at the door. She likes to be in here, but she wants to be able to get out.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll call to order this regular meeting of the Easton Reading Region 9 Joint Policy Committee at 9:10 a.m. on February 19th, 2021. First item is the approval of minutes from our February 5th, 2021 and February 12th, 2021 board meetings. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Maureen. I think I saw Chris's hand up second, so we'll give Chris the second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Very good. Passed 4-0. Takes us to public comment. No members of the public being present. It takes us to committee member comment. Hearing none, we will move to discussion and possible action. Social media policy being our first item in that section. So I think our intent was to look at some of the boilerplate language that we'd received from Shipman and Goodwin, some of the ideas we had sort of discussed there, and sort of focus our conversation about whether or not we want to advance this language, or sort of precautions we want to take to make sure that it's sort of a responsible policy that doesn't set us up for for confusion in the future about what is and isn't in the policy and sort of all of that. Is there so? First, start with, does that still sound like a reasonable approach to looking at this policy to everyone here?
To me, it does, but I do think that when we're advancing things to the board, they should go in a group, not just this one as a single item.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think, I don't know if the Title IX first reading has happened with the other boards yet, or if you've sort of kept that.
It hasn't happened at Region 9.
Okay, so we had our first reading, so we would on, I think March 9th is our next regular meeting. Our intent would be to discuss and do second reading and approve at that meeting. So I think what you're saying, Maureen, is it would be sort of a good idea to bundle things like that together so that it's not just sort of onesie twosie policies.
I think it also preserves lengthy discussion at the board level if it's just one issue.
Yeah.
Right. If there's one item, you can get derailed. If there's multiple, you push through.
Yeah. Okay.
I think I don't see the harm in the committee making recommendations on a one-off basis. I think then it becomes a function of agenda management to not actually bring it to the floor at a board meeting until there's multiple issues.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I mean, it's fine. We can try to do the Title IX and whatever we get through on social media at this.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So on the social media policy, Chris, you had connected with Shipman and Goodman. Do you want to bring up that language, or you want to send it to me and I can bring it up?
Do you have it? I can.
I don't think that I do.
Oh, we have a special guest. I'm so excited for our special guest.
Good morning.
I'm sorry. It's the small things. Hello, special guest.
Yes, our household is in a little upheaval with the snow.
Sure.
We love special guests.
Yes.
This is a friendly meeting.
John, I am re-forwarding it to you now, so it should be top of.
Thank you.
Between John and Maureen, I think we should have a bring your dogs to policy committee day.
That was the reason for my mute there. Yeah.
Dogs and kids, right?
Yeah.
Right. Although, Chris, you have a new locale there by your backdrop.
I am because everybody is at home, I am dispossessed from my usual home office so that high school distance learning can happen
I
uninterrupted.
see. Okay.
Okay, I'm just converting this to Google Docs so that we can make comments and mark it up in line. I'll share my screen.
Maureen, we've talked about in Reading in some meeting in April, having everybody take pictures of their background and swap. So it looks like we're in different houses because everyone's so accustomed to the rooms everyone's in.
Okay. Until we all have a copy of whatever work we do here. Okay. So I think a couple of so obviously we'll go through this in detail, but I think there's also a dimension of just sort of guiding principles that we had talked about before. So first off, having a policy is probably a good thing, but having a policy that is not crystal clear about Connecticut law, about the First Amendment, et cetera, to make sure that sort of no member of the public or no board member in the future runs into this and says, great, here is the club I can use to silence otherwise protected speech. And so, that because that could lead to a very expensive litigation due to, wrongful termination, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we just want to be really clear with this policy so that there is zero confusion amongst those who would look at this in the future. Is that still sort of the consensus of the policy committee?
Yeah. And I think is also worth going back to our overall guiding principles on the policy work and asking ourselves, if the goal of policy is to enshrine legal obligations, this is not a legal obligation. This is a sort of response to a cultural expectation of certain norms. And it bleeds over a little bit away from our overall guiding principles. I don't think that we need to be wedded to policies are only laws that are enshrined. But I think we have to be careful when we wade into waters like this, that we're doing it with clarity and intention and understand that it's a departure.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I was not being mindful of that.
Much of what's on the screen, at least, I am unmuted. Much of what's on the screen, I think, it invites confusion such that you don't want to say the laws regarding social media continue to evolve and change. Right. You want to state what your policy is. Right. So you don't invite, is this policy in compliance on a constant and recurring basis? So yeah.
And I don't even know that it's a true statement. Like which laws exactly regarding social media? Like
all laws continue to evolve and change, right, if you really want to get philosophical about it, right?
There will be another free speech case at a court somewhere tomorrow.
Right. So I think you want to delete that language.
Yep. I want to turn on, sorry. This is actually still in a Google, in a Word doc, not a Google doc.
Yes, the docx there.
I'm going to save this as a Google doc instead, which will give us all of the features that we're looking for. Okay. Okay. Good. Okay.
I think we'll get a lot of pushback if we retain the language. Ordinarily, the use of social media by employees, including employees, the use of personnel accounts will not be a legal or a policy issue. I think the point is that at some level, we're trying to develop a policy, so that's sort of conflicting. Hey, we're developing a policy, but this is not a policy issue.
Right.
We're admitting that this isn't a policy issue.
Right.
I'm surprised that that kind of language actually made it out of shipment, because thinking about it logically, it's not logical. Okay, here's where I think 1 through 5, we have to be reasonably precise about what our meaning is in terms of the intent, the language that's written there and how it could be construed. We want to both be directive, but not leave too much room for interpretation that could end up in front of us.
Right. Especially
we don't want to be an arbitrator on this.
Yeah, and especially interferes, disrupts, or undermines the effective operation of the school district. You could interpret that to mean you hurt people's feelings, and therefore you interfered with their ability to.
Correct.
Whatever.
You could drive a lot of trucks through that.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay.
I mean, I'm okay with 2 because what's defamatory is a really high bar, as is what's obscene. And discriminatory, no one should be using discriminatory language. So I'm okay with 2.
I'll play devil's advocate on discriminatory. You're going to get folks who say, a staff member said something that I disagree with politically. That person is discriminating against my political point of view. I think.
How about discriminatory in accordance with Connecticut state statute or something?
We're talking about protected classes and sort of legally defined discrimination. But I think that, to the earlier point, if we don't want the public seeing this as a club, we want to be clear as to what we mean by discriminatory.
Okay. Is used to engage in harassing, defamatory, obscene, abusive, discriminatory, and we want to do what? A parenthetical as defined in Connecticut general statute? I don't know the language.
As defined under Connecticut law.
I mean, at the end of you could even put at the end, each as defined by Connecticut law.
Sure.
Okay.
So that nobody gets to run to their favorite dictionary and try to say that something is obscene because they think so.
Right.
And similarly, inappropriate communications is a bigger truck than discriminatory. So don't you love having to deal with 2 lawyers, John and Gwen?
No, it's very helpful.
And I think we're going to delete 1 or at least substantially change it.
Yeah.
On its behalf.
We think 2 works like that?
Yeah, that's fine for me.
Okay.
For now.
Yeah. 1, do we want to try to remedy, or do we kill it?
I think we kill it.
Yeah.
What do you think, Chris?
Why don't you flag it to be killed now? Don't actually do it in case we want to actually try to address this educational process thing with the better language.
Okay. Creates a hostile work environment.
That's fine.
Breaches
confidence. That's fine.
Yep. Violates the law, board policies. Now, board policies, this is a self-aware policy that is referring to it, other policies. So I don't know what that means.
I think you could. Go ahead.
In what way can social media use violate a board policy?
Right. It's a little bit of a strange.
Right. The board policy would have to be a restraint on speech.
Right.
That you're violating.
Right.
And I mean, in theory, we have policies that restrict what you can record and photograph in schools.
Sure.
And you can use social media to post videos
and
media. So
Sure.
in theory, a staff member who improperly was recording students and then posted on social media would be in violation of a different board policy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's what I was thinking. I was trying to think about privacy policies. Pictures taken in the classroom.
Mhm. Actually, is it regarding student policy? Student privacy?
Well, is it limited just to students? I mean,
Now we're basically looking to restate another policy. Like the policy already says don't do it. Now
Right.
we're saying don't do it in the social media context, which is narrower than just don't do it.
Right.
It does offer some specificity to, students or parents who may, for whatever reason, the students got a copy of something and the parent wants to publish it.
Yeah.
So I think on this one, I'm in favor of the restate.
But this policy also is limited on its face to employees.
Right.
That's true.
Okay.
I don't know that we want administrative regulations to implement this policy. As a directive, it may adopt as opposed to will adopt.
Yeah.
Yoga policy is, I think, not well drafted when their references are the Constitution. We're going real broad here.
That's what I've thought about this is you're in some pretty dicey water if your first legal reference is the Constitution.
Well, they passed on Magna Carta and what might the
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay. So that's I would like to go back up here. I'm a little bit concerned about so under applicable law, I'm again very confused about what are the laws that would limit people's ability to go on and create social media and personal online accounts? Is the intent here that they're not allowed to be a part of that there's some law that prohibits them from being a part of an online community?
I find it silly to say nothing in this policy is intended to limit your right to use social media, except that's exactly what this policy is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The point is, let's limit the use of social media in the following ways.
Right.
Unless all of what we're articulating is otherwise and independently unlawful.
Yeah.
In which case, what's the point?
Yeah.
I think you can delete the language from nothing through applicable law.
I agree. I think it only confuses.
Yeah. And then the board acknowledges, for example, that its employees have the right under the First Amendment in certain circumstances. This, I'd want to be explicit. Like we're saying, speak out on matters of public concern. Maybe that's enough, but like, can we be very clear about what the different types of speech are? It feels like this has to come with a little bit of education.
Okay. We have to be very precise then when we do that about going back and articulating the standards applicable to public and private folk, right?
And I would say, frankly, that this sounds as if there are only some situations when you could speak on public issues.
Right.
It's a nearly unlimited right to speak on issues of public concern. It's hard to think of the circumstances where you can't.
Yeah. So then to my right there, kill the in certain circumstances as if it's limited. So we say employees have the right under the First Amendment to speak on matters of public concern. Can we also cite the Connecticut laws?
Right. I would say that employees generally have the right under the First Amendment because that implies that there might be limitations.
Right. That's good.
And then you might just say,
delete the for example,
say the United States and Connecticut constitutions. No, I would just replace where it says First Amendment, John.
Oh, okay.
Have the right under the United States and Connecticut
I see.
constitutions.
And we have to be mindful that when this comes up, someone, if we get a lot of public issues about what is a public concern, that someone is then prepared to say, we understand public matters of public concern are generally defined as blank. Define them here, but I'm imagining those that are uneducated trying to make it's a matter of public concern how many pencils we have in the classroom. You know what I mean?
Right. So I err on the side of, sort of being more explicit here about what the law states, up to and including, I think, the specific law that you've mentioned before, Chris, Connecticut law, to say Connecticut law in particular.
Right, like Connecticut General Statutes 31-51Q specifically prohibits the board from taking adverse employment action against employees for engaging in speech that touches on matters of public concern.
Yep. So are we okay with sort of putting that in here as well, so that people can reference and go look up the law too, so that they understand?
To be consistent with other policies, I would just say the board is prohibited from retaliating against employees for engaging in speech, and then in the legal references, put the statute.
Engaging in protected speech.
In accordance with.
I would just leave it, and then I would put the legal reference at the bottom.
Okay. Okay. And do we have that?
I don't think it's there. No. Oh yeah, it is. There it is. 31-51Q.
Where's? Oh, okay.
Okay.
I don't know what 40X and 48D are off the top of my head. But.
Right.
53A, is that the penal code, Maureen?
Should be the penal code. I have no idea what it says, but
yeah.
Hold on. Well, you're not in my screen.
Just reading through the entire thing.
John, can you scroll down just so that I can see what the 53A section is again? Thanks.
I'm guessing it's some sort of criminal harassment.
Disorderly conduct, Chris. That's interesting because I remember a case where I had to represent someone at the very beginning of my career who was accused of disorderly conduct for basically mouthing off in a school.
That's interesting.
I mean, it's a vague reference here. I suppose it supports the idea of what constitutes, harassment speech. I think it's okay.
Yeah.
Let's see what 250 is. Uh, 250 is a definition section of the penal code, having to do with definitions of computer systems, data, persons, such that I guess it implies that, speech on a computer is otherwise speech.
Okay, fine. All right. I've read through the full thing, and I'm comfortable with it. Anyone else? Has everyone had an opportunity to actually go through the full?
Yeah, I think I still have general reservations about the concept. I think this language is way better than it was when we started.
Yeah.
I'm skittish when we get into sort of opening the door to speech regulation generally.
Yeah. What helps is this section here and the specific, call outs of this is the kind of stuff that we're talking about. I think that helps, and that they all, I think would otherwise be, places where we're finding.
Right. This is basically now saying don't use social media to violate policies and laws that you'd otherwise be punished for.
Right.
Or that you could otherwise violate by just speaking out.
Right.
Right. You can create a hostile work environment by saying something to your face or by saying it to social media.
Right. That's right. Yeah. Each of these are either already a matter of law or well understood policy.
Look, for our purposes here, I think we need to advance something, and I think this is it at the moment.
So when I think about hostile work environment and language that would be harassing, defamatory, obscene, et cetera, I think of the Title IX policy and then the process that we need to engage in when there's when someone brings a concern forward. There's an entire investigation to see if it reaches the threshold of a hostile work environment. So I don't know if you just want to leave it as is or suggest that there would be some kind of a investigation, because creating there is a definition to a hostile work environment.
And that's my concern, is that the sort of layman's interpretation of hostile work environment, even though that is an actual thing, you go, oh, well, you made it hostile because you said something I disagree with.
Yeah, I've talked to dozens of people who tell me they have a hostile work environment because their boss is a jerk. It's like, that doesn't qualify. Get in line.
Look, I don't think that people will necessarily engage one policy mentally with another unless they're trained to look through, many, many possible avenues to make a complaint.
Yeah, I'm particularly, it creates a hostile work environment as defined in.
Right. Okay.
Right.
In accordance with Connecticut law, in accordance with applicable Connecticut general statutes, however you want to phrase it. But I'm fine with the greater degree of specificity.
Connecticut general statutes related to workplace harassment.
Sounds good.
And this is actually somewhere where citing 46, whatever it is, the Connecticut Fair Employment Practices Act, as it then defines, or Title VII, as it defines hostile work environment in the legal references, might provide a little bit more context.
Mm-hmm. I'm always pleased when I finish typing a word and I'm like, did I get the right number of R's and S's? Good. All right.
You want to put those sites at the bottom, the ones that Chris just
Yes.
mentioned.
Yep. Sorry.
Add them to Shipman's site.
Do we know? Yeah, sorry. Did
Leave
you?
those in there because I mean,
Yep.
it's a vague reference.
Yep.
I'm sorry about the.
No.
I'd be looking for CFEPA in Title VII. Let's see.
Shh.
You could do 46A-51 at sec.
You said 46.
It's 46A-51 and continuing from there.
Okay.
Put in the @sec there, John.
That's what this little guy is.
No, it's just ET period, SEQ period.
Oh, I see.
Like it means as follows.
John's going to finish this as an honorary lawyer at the end of this process.
I want some kind of degree into this.
It's just ET, not ECT.
Okay.
ETC, yeah.
All right.
ET period, SEQ period. Yeah.
Okay. I've never seen that before. Okay. Is it Latin?
Chris would know. My Latin is pretty rusty.
I think it's
it is.
and I think the sec is probably for some Latin for sequential and what
okay.
comes after.
Mm.
And then the Title VII is 42 USC 2000E at sec.
42.
United States Code, so it's abbreviated U period S
Okay.
period C.
All right. Sorry. So this is, would I do that? US code?
You do 42 first,
Okay.
and then U period, S period, C period. This,
Oh, I see. 42 USC.
yep.
Okay.
All caps.
And it can all be caps, but
I'll go back and fix that. Yep.
and then it's section symbol.
That's what that little guy is?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
2000 little e at sec.
Would you normally put a comma like I did up here?
Go either way.
Okay.
Typically not, but it doesn't really make a difference. It's a matter of style.
There's one thing I've got.
You're all getting lessons in Blue Book citations too.
Yeah. Well, and from a user experience standpoint, I look at it and I just go, ugh, why don't we have the name? Why don't we link directly to the actual law? Like what, yeah. One day. Okay. Anything else that we wanted to call out there, or any other ways that we want to, sort of make this more specific and easy for folks to grab and understand?
There were no regulations passed along from Shipman with this, right? For our review, this was the only.
I don't believe so. I believe this was all that was passed along.
All right.
As a practical matter, given the sensitivity is not the right word, but the interest in this subject matter across our boards and the community, this strikes me as the sort of thing that if we're going to adopt, we should be adopting on a trilateral basis, because I could see very easily each of the boards tweaking this in some way. And then we have 3 different social media policies that govern our central office, which is shared
Right.
3 ways, among other
That's
problems.
right. That's right.
So
Right.
God
I
forbid something
agree with
violates
you.
one policy, but not the other 2.
I agree with that.
I totally agree with that too.
Yep. Okay.
So I think maybe the solution would be to present it all for a first reading to the boards individually, with the expectation that it be considered a tri-board for a second reading when we're all together.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Just
I think that sounds reasonable. All right. Good. So thank you for that. Another 45 minutes of free legal. advice that maybe we can pass on to Gabe. Um,
Do you want a motion to
This was
recommend
Shipman this
the-
time.
right.
I'm sorry, I cut you off. What
I
you
said, do we want a motion to recommend this to the boards at this point?
I think so
Well,
for
so
our first reading. Okay.
Yeah.
To
Maureen,
request a
good.
discount from Shipman for the work.
Good. I think Maureen moved.
I'll second.
Yep.
Okay, Chris, good. Any discussion?
I would just say that I'm going to vote in favor of the recommendation, but I'm still not convinced the policy is appropriate
Mhm.
when we get to the board level.
All right. All in
It's
favor?
going to get tweaked anyway, right?
Yeah, that's
All in favor? Very good. Passes unanimously. And you all would have received a share that would have had that in the Word doc form. I'm just making sure you have this form, which is where we actually did the edit.
and we should turn that into a clean to share with the boards.
Yes, yes. Okay. And I think we can actually accept all of the edits, which I totally know how to do. There we go. One of my guys was going through an essay accepting the comments, and we thought he was just dismissing them. And we're like, whoa, 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 you got to react to those. And we got really mad. And then he said, I'm accepting the changes. I'm saying yes, it changes. I'm like, okay, sorry, my mistake. All right, very good. So that takes us to Go Guardian and action plan related there too. So let's take a peek at our action plan. I know, I think Stephanie, I think we're going to line up an attorney to join us in March. Is that correct?
March, the first Friday in March.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4. It looks like March 5th.
Okay. And
And we're also in the process of internally comparing products similar to Go Guardian in terms of their purpose and function.
okay.
And that's in process.
Okay. I'm trying to find the to-dos that line to those. So that would be the subject matter experts for Go Guardian.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's, so do we want to shoot for March, what is it? Is March 6th the Friday?
5th.
5th. Okay. All right. Do we want to shoot for March 5th or March 12th or?
Well, we could have the conversation all in the same meeting.
Okay. All right. Sounds like that's happening there as well. Okay. The relevant existing policy related to technology use and privacy, we closed that out last week. Is that correct?
No, we did not. That's still
Oh.
in process as well.
Okay. Should we just push this to next Friday, the 26th?
Yes, unless you want to do it all at the same time when we have Gwen Zatoon with us.
Okay. That seems reasonable. Okay. And I think in that vein, I can bring the CABE policy. I think last week we did the review of other towns. I think we looked at Weston and Westport and Ridgefield and Greenwich. But we didn't get into the CABE review, so we can look at that as well. Okay. Disclosures, Maureen, is there anything to report there? Should we just sort of, are we thinking we're just sort of having this entire conversation on March 5th?
I think we're having the entire conversation on March 5th. And what I found was overlapping with what's presented last week and a general view on my part that we need more specific disclosures.
Okay.
But that was just, I found what Stephanie presented as what's on the web and thought to myself, this needs to be more precise.
Yep. Okay. Good. Okay. Anything else on Go Guardian before we move on?
I think Maureen was saying something while she was muted.
Oh,
I
I'm
was
sorry.
saying that any write-up or any attempt to sort of change our public disclosures should be after we have the further discussions.
Yep.
Coming in.
Agreed.
So it's premature to do that work. It'll be duplicated.
Agreed. Okay. I don't know if we have any 3000 series or tri-board governance structure. So let's take a look at our status on that.
Yeah. Ideally, if we can come out of today with a proposed date or dates for that evening special meeting, we should.
Yep.
Dates tend to get away real fast in budget season.
Agreed. Okay. So we articulated a set of goals and a number of tasks, but I don't think we actually assigned the tasks. Oh, okay. So this is less tasks and more notes for what we want to do here. I'm actually a little confused by how we ended up with this format. I don't think I did this.
It's just a map for our own thinking, really.
Right. But we have it up here, and then we have, okay. We will make this a little clearer. So if the big task is let's schedule a date, are we shooting for our May tri-board? Is that where we're heading?
I think we have to have a little bit more of a framework. If this is the entirety of the framework for that discussion, that's great. But if we're going to add to this now in terms of a framework and things you want to resolve in a tri-board governance policy, then we need to add to them first.
Agreed.
I have no objection to having a long meeting to do this.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem appropriate for an hour. Many of these discussions don't
Well,
seem
a long conversation on this can make a huge difference to without that will be an endless series of long meetings,
Right.
that we've all sort of lived through in the past. So,
if I can make a suggestion, why don't we identify the questions that we want a policy to resolve? And then I've already done some of this just spitballing.
Yep.
I can put together a framework draft that answers those questions in some way. And that can be sort of the baseline against which we revise and discuss.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what I wanted to do is just say, if our sort of last task is present to the tri-boards and discuss with the tri-boards, I just want to sort of back into that and just build a reasonable cadence.
I think practically speaking, we would be well suited to pick an evening in the month of March to have sort of a first crack at this, because that is going to probably create as many questions as it answers.
Okay.
And we're going to probably want to come back in April and do it again.
Yeah.
To then be in a position in May to have a discussion with the boards.
Okay. What sounds reasonable? March, and we can continue. We could make some progress on it and try to sort of put together something that's a good starting point for the deeper conversation with the boards. With sort of this is still a policy committee meeting that we're trying to get as many people to show up to as possible.
I think it'll be a policy committee meeting held in the evening to facilitate whoever wants to come, and giving clear notice to the boards that it's happening, what's being discussed, and inviting their participation.
Okay. And what seems like a reasonable date to do that?
So the week of March 8th is quiet for Reading, because we'll have adopted our budget on the 2nd and we won't have a public hearing until the following week.
I have my meeting on the 9th, and then we're presenting to the Board of Finance on the 10th.
Okay. The following week, 15, 16, 17, 18, I assume 16 is Region 9.
Yes.
I'm assuming, because this is the typical cadence, that around the 18th is probably the Board of Finance or the public hearing, rather, in Reading. The following week,
Public hearing in Easton is the 22nd.
Okay, and there's probably going to be Board of Finance that night in
Mhm.
Reading. It's amazing how quickly it flies. It's, and what I get worried about once you get into this period, after we presented budgets, is there could be special meetings at any of these nights
Right.
to discuss adjustments.
Mhm.
So is Monday the 15th a crazy suggestion?
Monday, the 15th is probably going to be some type of a town meeting here in Easton, so I probably cannot do that.
That's right.
Okay. Instead of botting them out on this at this point, why don't we, because we can
Yep.
schedule by email and without having an FOI issue, why don't we start just putting all the dates down to an email and figuring out what's left?
I mean, I think that realistically, looking at this, you're at the 31st of March as a beginning point. But you guys can correct me if I'm wrong.
And then we're into.
I would want it sooner unless you want to put it on a weekend and you think you could corral people to think that that's okay.
Mm.
I mean, I'm okay with a Sunday night.
I am okay.
I'm not going anywhere. So
Yeah, exactly. I'm fine with that too. Let's try to bottom out on this before we meet next week.
Yeah.
So this will be something that we're committing to figuring out a schedule for this meeting before we get together next Friday.
Yeah.
So we'll send around emails and just land on a date. Okay, good. All okay. And okay. What else do we want to make sure that we're preparing? So Chris, you're working on draft language.
Yeah, if we have sort of the fundamental questions that we want to answer, I can try to draft language that answers those questions. I already have some of it from a year ago.
Okay.
And it could be in sort of a rough outline fashion of, here is mechanism, here is governance, here is purpose, here is whatever.
Yeah. So I think it's these guys. These were a part of what we outlined. So if we need to do more, we should make sure to get that. And then what seems like a reasonable date for completion on that?
Do we plan to talk about it here before we bring it to that evening meeting?
I think so.
I think so. I think it would be wise to do that.
So when do we want to do that?
You want consensus coming out of here?
Yeah.
You really do.
Yeah, I think so.
So if March 5th has been dedicated to Gwen,
Right.
Soon, we can spend time with it on the 26th. I can do something before next week, or we can put it over to the 12th. Whichever.
Let's shoot for the 26th. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else that we need to articulate here before we? Okay. Okay. Very good. Well, then that moves us on to public comment. No members of the public being present. Committee member comment.
Stay safe in snow.
Yes, stay safe in the snow. I'm trying to build a half pipe in the backyard, but
I want photos when it's done. I do.
okay. It's 3 feet tall. I don't know if it's usable yet. We'll see. All right.
You have to get Julia Marino to come around. She lives, no, really.
That'd be awesome.
Grew up around here and is quite good at that.
That's great. All right. Motion to adjourn. Okay, Chris. Very good. All in favor. Thank you. We are adjourned at 10 a.m. All right,
Take
thanks,
care.
everybody.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Take care.